Sonic the Hedgehog's many shows say a lot about his popularity and astonishing endurance. While it's hard to get the atmosphere and quality in any given reincarnation perfectly balanced, there have been plenty of efforts over the years, and I'd never say any one of them is worthless. Since Sonic and Tails appear side by side in most of them, a good litmus test can be to see how they interact in this new world, and if it's up one's alley, and there have been several success stories in that regard. Welcome to the showdown! In this episode, I'll be revisiting both the comedy-oriented Sonic cartoons, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog from the 90s, and Sonic Boom from the 2010s, the episodes Tails' New Home and Sidekick respectively. Both are about Tails getting injured in battle, and Sonic looking for a way to give the little guy protection so he can keep going. The shows, and by proxy the episodes, are markedly different in their storytelling and humour, which can be chalked up to a 20-year gap in their productions. But which is better? The blast processing generation or the Sonic was never good generation? It's no use generation, you're safe for now. The way Tails' New Home goes is as follows. Tails is getting chased around by Robotnik's henchman, Scratch and Grounder, and Sonic spends a fair amount of time returning the favour, but not enough time saving Tails, who ends up falling on his head from a great height. Realising that saving the world with a 4.5-year-old in tow isn't working out, Sonic puts Tails up for adoption and takes him to two very different houses. One where negligent parents are the pinnacle of comedy, and the other where they're worn out by a drill sergeant, especially Sonic Fastest Thing Alive the Hedgehog. You'd think only going to two houses instead of 3 or more would give an empty feeling, but these sequences are long and meaty enough to work by themselves. Before Sonic's willing to give up, Scratch and Grounder advertise that Tails' so-called real parents have been looking for him, and the house they go to has some uncanny fox puppets that claim to be his loving, caring parents. After Sonic bids an emotional farewell, the foxes reveal themselves to be ant robots, because threat. And this is where Robotnik enters the scene and the whole episode is therefore vindicated. But Sonic thinks back to when he first met Tails as a baby, and remembers that Tails is just a nickname he gave him. So how did these foxes know it?
Tails belongs with his own kind.
I can't believe it, an Adventures of Sonic episode made me use my brain. This leads into a climax where Sonic fools Robotnik, Scratch and Grounder into using a sneaker magnet on themselves, and the ant robots turn into applesauce. There was probably a pun in there lost in translation. But the very end has Tails and Sonic happy to say they're each other's family, because it's about being with people who love and care about you. Far better than the Sonic Says segment they tag on, where Coconuts has to choose between living with Robotnik and leaving home. I get it, but it's got some negative implications. But I'd say this is a pretty good episode for Adventures of Sonic standards. Not every joke lands with subtlety, but if you want creative visual gags, this one has you covered. And for a show this zany, I think a story like this is very useful in slowing things down and saying that Sonic and Tails are a good team. The problem is with a more emotion-driven plot, with more emotion-driven comedy, they were opening themselves up to a boatload of plot holes. Why didn't Tails just fly here? How is Sonic getting so tired here? Where did Robotnik get all these video games from? Some kind of Sonic-themed sweepstakes? Are Scratch and Grounder really stupid enough to fall for the same mailman costume twice in 2 minutes? Rule of funny, I guess, but it takes real piss and vinegar to get through an episode of this show and never say, that doesn't make sense. But that's part of the show's charm, and at the end of the day, Tails' New Home is one of the more charming outings in its strange little way. On to the Sidekick. Being the first episode of the Sonic Boom cartoon, it was a lot of people's first impression of the whole sub-series. We'll just call it a mixed bag for now, but the cartoon attracted a lot of fans, and you can see why. For a first episode, the plot cleverly shows you what the adventures are gonna be like. Sonic and Tails are battling Eggman and his new burn bot, but Tails' plane, the Tornado, gets damaged in the kerfuffle and crashes. One post-reveal dip in animation quality later, Sonic, seeing how dangerous the accident was, lays Tails off from being his sidekick and opens up auditions for a new one. Unfortunately, the only 3 suitable applicants are Tails, having made a swift recovery, Eggman, who clearly has an evil plan, but all applicants are welcome so he stays, and this droopy beaver. You wanna know what happens to him? You're welcome. Another battle ensues eventually where all kinds of terrain are explored, which is honestly the aspect of the episode I like the most. If you're going to introduce a new world for these old characters to live in, it doesn't hurt to show it all at once, especially the more dangerous places like water, because Sonic still can't swim. Oh yeah, story's happening. Tails saves him, Burnbot 2.0, now with burning power, is defeated, and Eggman vows to make an even cooler robot. Overall, this has all the hallmarks of a great first episode: memorable character introductions, good animation, and to be brutally accused, room for improvement. The humor makes more sense here than in its meme-dripping ancestor, but Sonic Boom early on was just good at providing chuckles. The funniest it gets is with the more offbeat banter, like when Sonic critiques Burnbot's name when it starts out as just a crushing robot. Luckily, Eggman fixes him later on in a clever callback, because cartoons after 1995 just expect you to use your brain. Some jokes fall flat, like most of what Amy says. I see they wanted to make her quirky and fun-loving at first, but hit upon something useful when she turned into the stern voice of reason. Knuckles is good here, but they haven't turned him into buff Patrick yet. Thankfully, Sonic, Tails, and Eggman are great from the word go. These are new incarnations of them, fresh off the biased presses, but they seem to have a rapport with one another, and have strengths and weaknesses that they can all bounce off. Sonic's a good fighter, but makes rash decisions. Tails is smart like a fox, but isn't concerned with safety. And Eggman has good plans with botched executions. These traits have been inferred since Tails' addition to the canon in 1992, but their implementation into an animated series was now more clever and entertaining than ever, Mace-worthy arm color aside. The verdict's a little easier than usual this time. Tails' new home is commendable for making Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog of all shows seem more human, and the Sidekick made people give the Sonic Boom cartoon a chance. But the better episode, in my opinion, is the Sidekick. 21 years of change to Sonic lore and the attitude of the TV animation industry were to be expected. I still consider Tails' New Home one of my favourite adventure episodes, but Sonic Boom is a much better show, and it only gets better after the Sidekick. Goodbye for now.